Welcome back, my friends, to your recaps!
The movie begins in a forest known as the Pride Lands, where all the animals live together in peace under the rule of the just king, Mufasa. Today is a very special day for King Mufasa and his wife, Sarabi, as they introduce their newborn son, Prince Simba, who is destined to become the king after his father in the future. As the animals of the kingdom gather from everywhere, the king's loyal companion, Rafiki, conducts the ceremony for Prince Simba. Rafiki takes the young prince from Queen Sarabi and presents him to all the creatures, who begin celebrating the momentous occasion. Meanwhile, in a dark cave, we see Scar, the lion who is Mufasa's brother and Simba's uncle. Scar has not attended the ceremony due to his jealousy of Simba, as the young prince's birth has crushed Scar's hopes of ever becoming king. Scar is shown talking to a small mouse, likening himself to it as they both live in darkness and survive on scraps. At that moment, Zazu, the king's advisor, arrives to inform Scar of Mufasa's anger over his absence from Simba's presentation. Scar, however, does not care, and even considers preying on Zazu. Before he can act, King Mufasa himself arrives to stop Scar and confront him about missing the ceremony. Scar's bitterness is evident as he claims to have forgotten about the event entirely. Scar turns his back on Mufasa to leave, but not before the king warns him against ignoring his authority. Mufasa reminds Scar that Simba will one day rule over him. Scar mockingly responds, "Long live the king," and walks away. Zazu suggests to Mufasa that Scar be exiled from the kingdom, foreseeing betrayal, but Mufasa refuses, affirming that the Pride Lands are home to everyone, including Scar. Later, Rafiki is seen joyfully collecting glowing bugs and carving an image of Simba's face on a rock as a historical record. Days pass, and Simba grows into a lively and energetic cub, waking up before sunrise, ready for new adventures. Simba wakes up early and goes to wake his father, King Mufasa, because Mufasa had promised to take him on a tour of the kingdom. Simba, full of excitement, can't wait for the adventure to begin. Mufasa starts the tour by climbing a high rock, showing Simba the borders of the kingdom he will one day rule. He points to the lands bathed in sunlight and explains that everything the light touches is part of their realm. Mufasa then gives Simba advice, explaining that his role as a future king is to protect the kingdom and maintain its balance. When Simba asks about the dark area beyond the mountains, Mufasa replies that it is beyond their control and strictly forbids him from going there. Simba, with childlike curiosity, wonders why he can't visit if he's going to be king. But Mufasa explains that a true king knows when to give as much as he takes, as life depends on a delicate balance. At that moment, Zazu, the king's advisor, arrives to deliver his daily report. However, Mufasa, busy teaching Simba how to hunt, instructs Simba to try catching Zazu without him noticing. Simba successfully does so, startling Zazu, who quickly flies away. Mufasa laughs with Simba at the situation, but Zazu soon returns to inform the king that hyenas have launched a hunting raid on the kingdom. Mufasa orders Simba to return home immediately as he rushes to defend the Pride Lands. Zazu escorts Simba back to play with the other cubs, but Simba feels upset because he wanted to go with his father. While wandering around, Simba chases a small bug and ends up encountering his uncle, Scar, sitting atop a high rock. Scar, upon seeing Simba, tells him to go play with the other cubs. However, Simba, driven by curiosity, climbs up beside him and proudly tells Scar that his father said he would one day rule the Pride Lands, even over Scar himself. With cunning deceit, Scar tells Simba about the elephant graveyard at the far end of the kingdom, claiming it's a place only for the brave and that Simba is too young to go there. He then asks Simba to promise not to tell anyone that he learned about this place. Scar's words spark Simba's curiosity, leading him to take his friend Nala along under the pretext of playing together. On their way, Simba reveals his plan to explore the elephant graveyard. Despite Nala's warnings about the danger of the place, Simba insists on going. Along the way, they encounter Zazu, who expresses his delight at seeing the future king and queen. When asked who he means, Zazu explains that it's them, as they are considered betrothed by tradition. Simba and Nala quickly deny this, stating they are just friends. Zazu responds that Simba cannot escape his destiny as king, which includes marrying Nala. Simba playfully teases Zazu, declaring the king doesn't take advice from anyone. Then he and Nala run off, blending into the crowd of animals to escape Zazu, who tries to stop them. Zazu hints that he knows exactly where Simba plans to go, but Simba ignores him and keeps running with Nala until they reach the kingdom's borders. At this point, Zazu leaves them and flies back to inform King Mufasa about the situation. Meanwhile, Simba and Nala continue their journey, playing and laughing, until they suddenly find themselves standing before the elephant graveyard. The place is eerie and filled with skeletons. Simba's curiosity drives him to explore further, despite Nala's growing concern and her attempts to convince him to turn back, as they are far from the kingdom's borders. Simba ventures deeper into the graveyard, defying Nala's warnings, until they both sense a strange movement. Suddenly, a pack of ferocious hyenas emerges one by one, surrounding Simba and Nala, leaving them trapped and unable to escape. The hyenas express their excitement, referring to their royal feast for the day. Then, their leader, Shenzi, appears, telling Simba she has been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. She declares that Mufasa's rules do not apply in the hyenas' territory at the elephant graveyard. At that moment, Zazu arrives, attempting to reason with Shenzi. He explains that Simba made a mistake by trespassing on their land, and warns her that attacking him could spark a war with Mufasa. However, Shenzi ignores the warning and moves to attack Simba. Simba and Nala begin to run for their lives as the hyenas give chase through the graveyard. After Simba and Nala enter the narrow tunnels and emerge into another area, they find themselves completely surrounded by hyenas. The hyenas mock Simba for his childish roar, but the situation changes when they hear a powerful roar echoing through the place. It turns out that King Mufasa has arrived just in time to rescue Simba and Nala. Mufasa intervenes forcefully, driving the hyenas away and issuing a stern warning to their leader, Shenzi. Shenzi grudgingly promises not to approach Simba again. Mufasa then takes Simba and Nala and leaves the area. Afterward, he asks Zazu to escort Nala back home, explaining that he needs to speak with Simba alone. Zazu tries to defend Simba, asking Mufasa to go easy on him and reminding the king that he himself had Simba's curiosity at the same age. However, Mufasa insists that Simba must learn an important lesson. Zazu follows the order and takes Nala away. Mufasa confronts Simba, who is filled with guilt. The king tells Simba that by disobeying orders, he not only endangered Nala's life, but also put the kingdom's future at risk. Simba tries to justify his actions, saying he wanted to prove his bravery and show he was fearless like his father. Mufasa explains that true bravery comes when there are no other options, and admits that he was scared today when he found Simba in danger. Simba feels proud when he notes that the hyenas were terrified of Mufasa. The king explains that the hyenas know the consequences of challenging him. To ease the tension, Mufasa plays with Simba for a while until Simba asks about the stars in the sky. Mufasa tells him that those stars represent the spirits of past kings who watch over them, and that one day he will join them, assuring Simba that he will always be there for him if needed. Meanwhile, the hyenas gather at the elephant graveyard, discussing Mufasa's strength. Suddenly, Scar, the king's brother, makes an unexpected visit. Scar criticizes them for living in misery without a home and mocks their failure to eliminate Simba and Nala as planned. He then proposes a sinister deal. Scar reveals his desire to kill Mufasa and seeks the hyenas' assistance. He promises that once he becomes king, they will be allowed to live in the kingdom like other animals and hunt without restrictions. He presents a well-thought-out plan to eliminate both Mufasa and Simba. The hyenas eagerly accept the offer, welcoming the opportunity. The next day, Scar takes Simba to a valley within the kingdom. He tells Simba that he knows Mufasa is upset with him and suggests that he make amends by staying in the valley and practicing his roar until it becomes stronger and louder. Scar assures Simba that this will make Mufasa proud, treating him as a future king rather than a cub. Scar then leaves the valley and signals the hyenas to execute their plan. The plan involves chasing a herd of wildebeest down a hill, causing them to stampede into the valley where Simba is located. Simba tries to escape, but the stampede is fierce and chaotic as the animals flee in fear of the hyenas. Meanwhile, Scar goes to Mufasa and tells him that Simba is trapped in the valley amidst the stampede. Mufasa immediately rushes to rescue his son, who is clinging to a tree branch in the valley. Scar points out Simba's location from atop the hill. Mufasa quickly descends into the valley, maneuvering through the chaotic herd to reach Simba. He finally manages to save Simba and places him in a safe spot, but he is struck by one of the animals and falls. Struggling, Mufasa starts climbing the rocks to escape the valley. Scar watches the entire scene without intervening. As Mufasa reaches the edge of the cliff, he looks up at Scar, pleading for help. Scar's eyes reveal his betrayal. Despite Mufasa's plea, Scar digs his claws into Mufasa's paw and whispers maliciously, "Long live the king," before delivering a fatal blow that sends Mufasa plummeting into the valley below. After the stampede subsides, Simba climbs down from his hiding spot to check on his father. He finds Mufasa's lifeless body and approaches him with immense grief, lying beside him in his embrace. Scar arrives shortly after. Observing the scene, he tells Simba that it's his fault and that he caused his father's death. Simba, devastated, insists it was an accident and that Mufasa was trying to save him. Scar, feigning sympathy, claims he believes Simba, but warns him that the rest of the pride won't. He adds that they will blame Simba and seek revenge against him. When Simba asks Scar what he should do, Scar advises him that the only solution is to run away and never return. Shocked and terrified, Simba decides to flee. After he leaves, the hyenas emerge from behind Scar, who orders them to chase Simba and kill him. The hyenas pursue Simba until he falls off a steep cliff. Believing he has died from the fall, they return to Scar to report the news. However, Simba survives by landing on a tree branch at the bottom of the hill and manages to escape beyond the kingdom's borders. Meanwhile, Scar returns to the Pride and informs them of the tragic deaths of King Mufasa and his son Simba. Feigning sorrow and regret, he claims that if he had been present on the cliff at the time, he would have tried to save them. Scar then declares that with the king and prince gone, the kingdom needs a new ruler and presents himself as the next king. He announces that he will rely on the hyenas to help him govern and allows them to live within the kingdom alongside the other animals. Elsewhere, Simba wanders aimlessly through a vast desert, suffering from hunger and thirst. Exhausted, he collapses on the ground, and vultures begin circling overhead, waiting for him to die. Luckily, the meerkat Timon and his warthog friend Pumbaa arrive just in time. They drive the vultures away and save Simba. When they realize he is a lion cub, they are initially terrified and flee the scene. However, Simba eventually regains consciousness. Timon tells Simba that they saved his life, but Simba responds indifferently, explaining that he has done something terrible and doesn't want to talk about it. Seeing Simba's sadness, Timon and Pumbaa try to cheer him up by introducing him to their carefree philosophy, Hakuna Matata, meaning no worry. Timon explains their life principle of ignoring problems and encourages Simba to adopt the same mindset. With no other choice, Simba decides to join them. They take him to their beautiful valley home, where Simba learns that the place is a haven of peace, where all animals coexist harmoniously. They inform him that he cannot hunt or harm any of the creatures living there, and if he wants to eat, he must adapt to their diet of insects. Initially hesitant, Simba reluctantly tries eating bugs. Despite finding them unappealing at first, he eventually accepts them as a viable way to satisfy his hunger. Days pass, and Simba grows up, as does his friendship with Timon and Pumbaa. Meanwhile, the Pride Lands suffer under Scar's rule, with the hyenas turning the once flourishing kingdom into a barren wasteland due to unregulated and excessive hunting that has destroyed the ecosystem and depleted the kingdom's resources. Zazu, still loyal to Mufasa's family, informs Nala of the dire state of the kingdom, warning her that it is on the brink of collapse due to the hyenas' unchecked hunting. The hyenas attempt to attack Zazu to silence him, but he manages to escape. Elsewhere in the kingdom, Nala urges Sarabi that they must resist and find a way to escape Scar and the hyena's control. But Sarabi refuses. She insists that patience is their only option, and that Scar and the hyenas are destined to fall eventually. Meanwhile, Shenzi, the leader of the hyenas, informs Sarabi that Scar has requested to meet her. When Sarabi meets Scar, he attempts to impose his authority on her by forcing her to join him and share his meal. She refuses, angrily confronting Scar and accusing him of destroying the kingdom through his reckless policies and excessive hunting. Scar responds arrogantly, claiming that as king, he can do whatever he pleases. He then proposes marriage to Sarabi, pointing out that she chose Mufasa over him in the past. Sarabi firmly rejects him, declaring that it is impossible. Infuriated by her defiance, Scar decides to punish her by commanding the hyenas to destroy all remaining resources in the kingdom. That night, Nala sneaks out of the kingdom unnoticed by Scar and the hyenas. Zazu spots her and tries to stop her, fearing for her safety, but she tells him that she must seek help from outside the kingdom to save them. Scar soon becomes aware of strange movements in the kingdom and starts searching for the source. Zazu cleverly claims that he was the one moving around, distracting Scar and the hyenas long enough for Nala to escape. From the top of the hill, Sarabi watches Nala leave the kingdom, hopeful that she will find someone to save them. Far from the Pride Lands, Simba is seen playing with butterflies in the valley. Suddenly, he notices a gazelle fleeing from him in fear. Simba is puzzled by the gazelle's reaction, but Timon and Pumbaa explain that it sees him as a threat since he is a lion and could easily prey on it. Their conversation shifts to a discussion about the balance of nature, the importance of every creature's roles in the ecosystem, and how all living beings are interconnected in ways that maintain the harmony of life. Simba, using his strength, breaks a large rock, revealing a swarm of worms inside, which he shares with his friends. After finishing their meal, they sit together on a rock, relaxing and gazing at the stars in the sky. Pumbaa asks, "What are the stars?" Timon confidently replies, "They're just glowing bugs or fireflies in the sky." When they ask Simba for his opinion, he recalls his father's words and says, "Someone once told me that the stars are the spirits of the great kings of the past, watching over us from the sky." Timon and Pumbaa burst into laughter, which saddens Simba as it reminds him of his father. He leaves to sit alone. While sitting, a strand of his hair falls into the water and drifts through the valley, eventually reaching Rafiki, the baboon, who realizes from it that Simba is still alive. Meanwhile, Timon and Pumbaa are happily strolling with the other animals in the valley. Suddenly, Nala appears, attempting to hunt one of them, causing everyone to scatter in panic. Nala chases Pumbaa, who desperately tries to climb a rock behind Timon, but fails and falls. Just as Nala is about to pounce on him, Simba intervenes and confronts her, unaware that she is Nala, his childhood friend. Soon, he recognizes her and calls out her name, and she realizes that it's Simba, the friend everyone thought was dead. Overjoyed, Nala embraces him and tells him about Scar and the hyena's destruction of the kingdom. She urges him to return and reclaim his place as king. But Simba, after introducing her to Timon and Pumbaa, refuses to go back, saying that the valley is now his home. The two spend a long time together, wandering and reminiscing about their childhood memories. Despite this, Nala fails to convince Simba to return with her and is puzzled about how he disappeared for all those years without letting anyone know his whereabouts. Simba, however, believed he was responsible for his father's death, and so he refused to return with Nala. He told her that Scar was now the king, and explained that he was living by the motto, Hakuna Matata. Nala, saddened and angry, told him he was no longer the Simba she once knew, then left, returning to the kingdom. Later, we see Simba wandering alone, reflecting on Nala's words that had stirred painful memories. Meanwhile, Rafiki the baboon had managed to find Simba's location. When Simba saw him, he asked, "Who are you?" Rafiki replied, explaining that he was the one who first presented Simba to the kingdom as a cub. Rafiki then told Simba that King Mufasa was still alive. Shocked, Simba ran after Rafiki, who led him to a water pond in the valley. Rafiki asked Simba to look into the water, where he saw his reflection. Simba realized that Rafiki was trying to tell him that his father's spirit still lived within him. He then remembered Mufasa's words about taking responsibility as the rightful king. When Rafiki asked him, "Do you now know who you are?" Simba replied, "I am King Simba, the son of King Mufasa." He stood on a high rock and let out a powerful roar before setting off to reclaim his kingdom in the Pride Lands. On his way back, Simba met Nala and asked her to join him. Together, they journeyed to the Pride Lands, which had turned into a wasteland under Scar's rule. Simba met Zazu, who was overjoyed to see him return. Simba was also surprised to find that his friends, Timon and Pumbaa, had followed him to help. Simba explained that they were now in his kingdom, and that they began planning their way into the Pride Land. They discovered that hyenas were guarding the kingdom's borders. Timon and Pumbaa decided to act as bait to distract the hyenas so Simba and Nala could enter. The plan worked perfectly as Timon told the hyenas that Pumbaa was ready to be their dinner. The hyenas chased after Timon and Pumbaa, leaving the path clear for Simba and Nala. Meanwhile, Rafiki took out his old staff, preparing for the upcoming battle. At the same time, Scar was threatening Sarabi, demanding she marry him. Sarabi refused, boldly telling Scar that he was nothing compared to the great Mufasa. Scar attacks Sarabi, striking her, but at that moment, Simba arrives. When Scar first sees Simba, he mistakes him for Mufasa due to their striking resemblance. Simba immediately goes to his mother to reassure her, promising that he will never leave her again. Scar is shocked to realize that Simba is still alive, as the hyenas had led him to believe otherwise. At that moment, Nala appears and declares that Simba is the rightful king, and that the entire pride is ready to protect him with their lives. Scar, however, decides to continue his deceitful game and tells the pride that Simba was responsible for King Mufasa's death. Simba admits his mistake in front of everyone and begins to feel anxious, which Scar exploits to try and dominate him. During the confrontation, Simba's foot slips off the edge of the cliff, leaving him clinging to the rock with one hand. Scar recalls the similar moment when he killed Mufasa, and he digs his claws into Simba's paw, telling him he will kill him just like he killed his father. Hearing this confession, Simba gathers his strength, grabs Scar's mane, and climbs back onto the cliff. He confronts Scar with his own words, exposing him as Mufasa's murderer. Realizing his plan has been exposed, Scar orders the hyenas to attack the pride. A fierce battle ensues between the lions and the hyenas. Simba and the lions fight valiantly, while Timon and Pumbaa face the hyenas as well. Pumbaa shows incredible courage, attacking the hyenas so fiercely that they flee in fear. Nala faces off against Shenzi, showing great bravery as she bites her and throws her off the cliff. Even Zazu joins the fight, cleverly outmaneuvering the hyenas. Meanwhile, Rafiki arrives at the scene, wielding his old staff to fend off the hyenas around him. Simba joins Nala, and together they fight off the remaining hyenas. Scar realizes he has lost the battle when he sees the hyenas beginning to flee. He attempts to escape, but Simba chases him and eventually corners him at the top of the cliff. Scar starts begging for mercy, claiming that the hyenas were responsible for everything that happened and that he had planned to get rid of them as soon as possible. Simba responds by telling Scar that he won't kill him because he is not like Scar, who murdered his father. Instead, he orders him to leave the kingdom and never return, echoing the same words Scar once said to him as a cub. However, Scar deceives Simba and launches a surprise attack, attempting to kill him. A fierce and lengthy battle ensues between them, and Simba ultimately overpowers Scar, causing him to fall off the cliff. Scar survives the fall, but lands among the hyenas who were cast out by the lions. Shenzi, the leader of the hyenas, confronts Scar, telling him that they overheard his conversation with Simba about his plan to betray and kill them. The hyenas then turn on Scar and finish him off. Simba returns to the Pride as the rightful king of the Pride Lands. In a short time, the kingdom regains its beauty and prosperity under the rule of King Simba and Queen Nala, who is now his wife. In the final scene, Rafiki presents Simba and Nala's newborn son, the kingdom's first prince, symbolizing a new era of hope and renewal for the Pride Lands. Please, if you like my content, support me with a like and subscribe to the channel. Have a nice day, friends.